Fricano. I want to welcome everyone here. We had sent out massive, statements about this law to all of the following counties. Clinton, I don't know how to pronounce this, Gratiot, sorry. Ionia, Kent, Manistee, Mason, Mecosta, Montcalm, Muskegon, Newaygo, Oceana, and Ottawa. You know what, I speak from the heart, and I'm not going to shy away from what I'm thinking right now. I'm just going to say it. I have businesses in Ottawa, Muskegon, and Manistee, and I'd like somebody to raise their hand here. Who is from that Chamber of Commerce? No one. That makes me mad. That the Chamber of Commerce's that I own restaurants in didn't even show up. Believe me, within 24 hours, they're going to hear about that from me. But back to my nice side. I want to welcome you all here, and it means a lot to us that we are bringing this to people's attention. So I want to introduce a wonderful young lady. She is part of the Licensed Beverage Association of Michigan, Diane Schindelbeck, and then I'll return in just a second.
All right. Thank you, Ted, and yes, welcome. The first thing we want to do is actually introduce our legislators, and as Ted was mentioning, and I'll kind of give, before I give it back to Ted, we want to make sure today is very interactive, you guys. So to kind of give you a little overview, I'm going to introduce the legislators. I'm going to give it back to Ted. He's going to explain why we organize this and what we hope to accomplish today to empower all of you, to make sure you're informed. And then as we go through the slide presentation, we have two things we have to make sure we cover today. First is the Supreme Court's ruling that goes in effect February 21st. Let's pretend like the other bills aren't even there yet, because we want to make sure we already know what we are facing come February 21st. So we have to know what's going on and how we're going to prepare for that. So that's what Ted and I are going to cover. So we will cover the Supreme Court ruling on both the minimum wage and the sick time act. Then we're going to introduce Scott Ellis. And Scott Ellis is the Executive Director of the Michigan Licensed Beverage Association. And they are a huge leader in these bills and in this initiative. Scott's been working on this for years, since 2018. And when the initiative actually took place, so he's very knowledgeable. But we brought our legislators, invited our legislators here today from all of those counties, both House and Senate. And we want to thank them for being here today. And we promised them that we would not put them on the spot. We're not going to beat them up, because we just want to be informed, and we just want to be able to ask the questions, and they will bring a lot of knowledge, and we're their constituents, so they're here for us, and let's take advantage of that. So, thank you for being here. First of all, it's Representative Will Snyder, and Will is the State House representative right here in Muskegon County. And what's your district number? I wrote it down, but I didn't. 87. So District 87. And I'm going to point something out, you guys. What we're talking about today is not a red or blue issue. This is a bipartisan issue, and we thank Will. He is one of the great guys who is standing here with us today, and we thank him for that. So sitting next to him is Representative Tom Coombs. Did I pronounce it right?
That's right.
All right. And he covers, what counties do you cover?
You'll hear me.
All right.
Clare, Osceola, Mecosta, and a sliver of Lake County.
Fantastic. Thank you, Representative, for being here today. And then we have my representative, Representative Joseph Fox.
And thank you for having me here. And I live just east of here a little bit. And I represent all of Newaygo County, 3/4 of Lake County, except his sliver, okay? 3/4 of Wexford County, which includes Cadillac. I go all the way up to Manton and Mesick. Then 1/4 of Mason County, just the eastern edge, and 1/8 of Oceana County, just there by Walkerville area. Okay, so it's good to be here with you.
And we do have some others that did RSVP, and I know Senator Bumstead, and actually thank you so much. I would like to welcome Senator Bumstead's district representative, and she's here today, and so that way he's jumping off a plane and he's going to try to be here as soon as he can, but she's here as well, so they probably will be stepping in. So now, with that introduction, Ted, I'm going to hand it over to you and let them know why we're here.
Okay, so being a business owner, for some strange reason, we are all deemed as multimillionaires that don't have a care in the world. But restaurant owners, I've said this before, they have a weird gear in their head. They constantly bet the farm. I tell my wife, how many times have we bet the farm? And business owners and employees in businesses which they love to be in. Listen, I'm going to have Catherine, will you shut this thermostat off? Thank you. We're optimistic people. We love the freedom of being self-employed. Servers and bartenders are almost self-employed people. One of my favorite things when I open up a new restaurant is being introduced to wonderful employees and bringing them to the attention of the Fricano's brand or another brand of restaurant that I'm doing. I am an optimistic person, but I'm going to be very real with you. I'm not anymore. I am losing the optimism in this state to donate, invest into the state, and to grow my business. I am losing optimism. There is something, I'm not going to sugarcoat this speech, there is something devious going on in Lansing. I can't figure it out, but there's something devious. These two laws that are being proposed, it is impossible for a small business to make sense of, and it certainly is going to be, in my opinion, I'm going to lose 40% of my staff. My bartenders and my waitresses are just as concerned about this as I am. You either lose your staff, you go to kiosks, or you close. Now, business owners are not kings. We are accountable to people. A representative of Shelby State Bank is here today. They are my bank. I am accountable to Shelby State Bank. I need to fulfill obligations that they hold me accountable to. Lansing needs to understand that business owners, they're not kings, we're not multimillionaires, we are accountable to many people. And what really frustrates me is we just got through COVID, and now they lay this on us. I had literally every inspector that Lansing could send to me investigate me through COVID, with the exception of Child and Family Services. Apparently I'm still a good dad and still a good husband. But I had Governor Whitmer's Miosha in my office telling me how much I'm going to be fined. Here's what I never heard from Lansing during COVID. Thank you. Thank you for being current with your payroll tax, your property tax, your sales tax, your unemployment tax. They could not wait to send thugs to me to investigate if I have a clean, sterile draft system. Or if I had done everything that I could to put masks on all of my customers. And they couldn't wait for that. But what I never heard once is, thank you for staying in business. I'm never going to forget that. So, I just have to wonder how much more fight do I have in me to keep my restaurants open. And I'm an optimistic person. You don't build restaurants without having that weird gear in your head. But the fight is almost gone. And this thing on the 21st of February is going to devastate small business. I know we all hear about tips, but the administrative issues to deal with when it comes to, because they're ready to fine you. Lansing wants to fine us if we do something wrong. If we do something wrong administrative-wise when it comes to the Sick Time Act, they have a team ready to nail us to the ground. That's how scary this is. So, am I going to sit up here and go, listen, everything's going to be okay. We're going to get through it. Not this one. Not this one. And this is just the beginning. So that's why I'm mad, and that's why I'm feisty, and that's why those 3 Chamber of Commerces should have sent people here, because this is frightening. So that's how I feel. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to say, oh, everything's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. We need a massive revolt in this state to correct these ridiculous rules and regs that are being put on small businesses. Because I don't know what's coming next, but you know that there is a group of people in Lansing that are ready to start the ball rolling with many, many more rules and regs that we simply cannot possibly afford. So with that, I'm going to turn this back over to Diane. And it means a lot that you're here. And to end on a positive note, you're all getting complimentary Fricano's pizza after this is over. There you go. That kind of balanced the scales with my speech a titch. Here's Diane.
And that's the funny thing, Ted and I have been friends for quite a long time. And the first time when my husband and I were buying our first restaurant, I went to him and said, hey, we've been approached to do this, am I crazy? He goes, well, whatever you do, don't listen to your friends, don't listen to your family, and don't get caught up in the him and the haw and how horrible it is, the long hours, because it's a very rewarding industry to be in, and you just have to stay positive. Saturday night, he's sitting at our restaurant now up in Diamond Lake, and he says, Diane, how are you staying so positive? And I said, because you told me I had to. But we're not. And we have spent the last 3 weeks when we decided to do this to really share and figure out a way, guys. We can't just survive, we have to thrive, and we have to come together to figure out how we're going to do it and how we're going to fight back. So Ted, actually, I need you to stay up here because we're gonna be interactive on these next couple of slides. So I want you up here by me.
Okay.
All right. So, okay. And thank you, Jackson, for doing the IT for us. We so appreciate that. All right, let's flip it to one fair wage. All right, so obviously we all can read. We have copies of these, so we're not going to get into that, but we just want to highlight some of the things that are happening right now come February 21st. This was a petition initiative in 2018. Everyone always wants to know, why did this start? It was a petition initiative. I found it very interesting when we were testifying last week or 2 weeks ago in front of the House, and one of our state representatives asked someone from the unions and said, so do you represent restaurants and servers or bartenders? And he says, no. She's like, well then why are you here? So one fair wage, they're out of California, I guess that person said, right? And you guys, once we talk the highlights, raise your hand if you have a question to ask your legislators. We'll give you the mic to direct those questions. So, yes, this was a petition initiative. The court decided back in July that the adopt and amend was unconstitutional. So that's why we're here today. Next slide. Just want to point out right here that the reason why they said that it was unconstitutional is because the legislators tried to amend it during the same legislative session that this went into place. So that's where they felt that that was unconstitutional. I can see that. Yeah, maybe, right? Okay. But that's one of our questions that we want to ask our legislators today. Okay, I'm sorry. Good, I don't have my back to you, I'm glad. Someone asked me today, where is that sweet lady that showed up? She was sharing, what is your first name? Teresa owns 2 restaurants down in Zealand, and she was sharing with me how some of the other states have implemented this, and they are already reversing and having hearings to overturn and change what they already have going on in their states. So that's one of the questions that Ted and I came up with today as we were talking about questions that we want answered. We get a new governor next year. This all goes into place. What are our steps to change this? Once this all goes into place, what do we have to do to be interactive to get that ball rolling to change that? Someone answer that? It was a ballot initiative, yes.
Well, then does it take 2/3?
No.
So, your high school civics lesson, town clerks, and please, if you have any questions, let me know. Your high school civics lesson, it takes 3 steps to pass a law. There's the House of Representatives, currently under Republican control. There's the Senate, currently under Democrat control. And of course, our governor, Gretchen Whitmer, is a Democrat. So, at any point, and it doesn't matter who's in control. If we go all blue, all red, it has to pass all 3 stages of government. So to change this, it has to pass all 3 levels of government.
Okay.
And also take 6 years? Nope. Nope. So the question was, did it also take 6 years? Absolutely not. You know, you can bring it up. I think a hurry would be a couple of months, don't you? To go through, you know, the wheels move slowly, but you could, there's no reason it couldn't be done. There's no reason this can't be done by February 21st. So.
Okay. Next slide. What it means and why it matters. Okay, the first thing we're going to talk about is the tipped minimum wage. It will be abolished by 2030. So we do have the breakdown. I'm going to stand over in this corner so that way I'm not in front of there. All right. We do have a breakdown, like right now we know January 1st through February 20th currently. The increase was from $10.33 an hour to $10.56 per hour, so that's what we already have to adjust the minimum wages. So we do have a sheet that does give if you do not have the breakdown of the phases each year. So we do have that information that we can send home with you. And here comes Representative Greg Van Workum. Thank you. Looks like he's bringing a little student with him. Awesome, welcome, thank you. Okay, turn to the next one there, Jackson. So that was just a highlight on there. Here it is where it talks about the increase currently that we're going to be facing right now, currently, that went into effect January 1st. All right, turn to the next. Now it's February 21st. Minimum hourly wage rate will be $12.48. Instantly, look at that, that's $2 per hour. So that's what we want to highlight right there, where we know that goes into effect on February 21st. Next one. Here we have all the breakdown where it's going to be 60% of the minimum hourly wage, 70, 80, 90, going up to 2030, or then it will reach the 100% of the minimum hourly wage rate. Okay, turn to the next. So let's talk about fallout. As Ted brought up, we are already an industry that is recovering, trying to recover from the pandemic. Now they're throwing this at us. I keep saying the job loss. That's my big thing. The job loss that we are going to face when this happens. It's not just, first of all, the servers and the bartenders, they do not want this change. They already make good money and they're happy with what they're doing and how they're being paid. So they're going to get out of the industry. We're going to have to lay people off because, you know, we're also going to be hit with this Earned Sick Time Act. I'm already going to tell all my employees come after if this new bill passes, hey, I'm going to cut you all to 24 hours because I can't afford to pay the sick time leave. So that's all you're going to get from me is 24 hours. We'll get into that when we talk about the new bills. But job loss. Restaurants are going to close. And we all know what happens when we have job loss. There's going to be more people on government assistance. The economy is going to crash. I told somebody yesterday, I think this is going to be the most detrimental thing that our state has faced when it comes to our economy in a very long time. Tipping, as we know it, is going to be gone forever. They're saying 50,000 jobs. In my little presentation it says 40, but the number is actually 50,000. 50,000 jobs will be lost. Businesses are going to be closed. again, this sweet gal right here, she said she was just in Chicago last weekend, and every other building was padlocked. Right, Ted?
Right.
Yeah. And that's why the servers are scared, because they make good money right now, and they don't want to face this change. So let's turn to the next one. I like giving a couple of, there's a robot. And when we were in Lansing last week, Ryan from Ryan's Roadhouse, very successful business in St. John's, his point to everybody was, all of us go to the airport and we all fly in. What do we have? We have kiosks. What are some of these established businesses going to be doing? They are going to be, instead of paying employees, they're going to buy kiosks because that's going to be more cost effective and everything will be counter service. Like Ted said in his video that he just made. Oh my gosh, people that are McDonald's and fast food, they're loving this because they don't have the overhead of employees. They don't have to clean the inside of their buildings. It's counter service. You want a drink? Now we have those machines that you can put your ID in and you can pour your own beer. Who needs a server? You know, we don't need people anymore. So this little robot, my friend went out to California just this fall, and he sent me this picture, and he says, get this, he goes, first of all, my wife and I show up at the hotel, and there wasn't a human in sight. Nice hotel. He walked up to a kiosk, stuck his credit card in there, spits out a little plastic card for his hotel key, never saw a person. Oh, okay, no one around, no bellhops anymore, carry your own luggage. Then he goes to the restaurant right next to the hotel. He said that employee right there was the only human being in the building, and he was there to run the machines. This little robot came up and took his order. This little robot delivered his food. There was no person in sight. How's that for service? I wonder how they're doing today. Jetsons are real. So, right?
That was funny.
All right, that was funny. That can be funny. All right. On to the next. So we're talking about the fallouts. Lower wages for our employees, the layoff, the higher costs. Okay, do you see what's going around right now? Everybody on receipts? Okay, I know my restaurant up in Diamond Lake, we started offering a cash discount. And because I couldn't handle the $2,000 credit card fees that I was getting every month. And so now I'm seeing restaurants that put on their Michigan minimum wage fee. So I think I'm gonna start adding that to the bottom line. That sounds like fun. My customers are really gonna throw tomatoes at me now. But here's some these are 89% plan on raising their menu prices. 52% are considering adding a service charge to offset the cost. So these are great, actually horrible statistics. Horrible statistics that we're seeing. On to the next. Just a few more little bullet points here. 9% of bars and restaurants will lay off 50% of their staff. Okay, turn to the next. That's just depressing. Ted might start crying. Okay, now we're going to get into the paid leave structure. This one thing, okay, actually, I want to raise a hand here. How many people here are in the restaurant industry? Your business is why you're here today. Okay. Actually, that was my first boss right there when I was 16 years old, Deb Schiller. She has a place right here, Circles in Muskegon, if anyone remembers those days. So cool. But it was great to get these RSVPs. We have people heating and cooling that are here. Jen was sharing some great stories with me, and I'm going to start bringing up some points she brought up. She's a very intelligent, knowledgeable. Like she said, she came into our place on Saturday, and she goes, Diane, I have been on the forefront following this sick pay leave, and it's ugly. And she was sharing some stories that I'll share when I get to that point. But this, I watched someone who owns a gun shop. He said it's going to increase his monthly expenses $3,000 by paying these paid leave wages that we're going to have to come up with somehow or another. So on this first one that we really, I think, is horrible to bring up, and here's the story, I'll go ahead and tell it right now, Jen goes, Diane, just think, you and Eric decide to go away for the weekend. And all of a sudden you have 3 employees scheduled at your little place, and none of them call in, they don't show up, you're out of town, doors are locked, your business isn't open, you can't fire them. No, they can do that for 3 days. So that's pretty sad. Everyone currently, not on the new bills that Scott's gonna talk about, but there's no exemptions. All full-time, part-time, seasonal, temp workers will accrue this paid leave. Who can afford to hire somebody? I know, I don't have, I'm the bookkeeper. I can't afford to hire somebody to come in and keep track of and monitor all of these accrued hours. Oh, let's see, okay. I can't even keep track of the schedule. Someone comes up to me and says, do you know Tanya's not working today? I'm like, oh crap, I guess I gotta cook. So how are we gonna monitor that? How are we gonna, like Ted said, we're gonna have to, what are we gonna do, get fines when that happens? Are we gonna be fined if we're not keeping proper record keeping on this? So everyone currently right now will accrue and get all this. Think about the people who are gonna abuse it. Go ahead and turn to the next one. There it is. Someone doesn't have to show up for 3 consecutive days and you can't fire them. This is going to be so abused. Think about all the teenagers and seasonal workers who are going to take advantage of that sick time. Okay, on to the next. Now I'm getting grouchy. Okay. Now, all employers must allow their workers to carry over an unlimited amount of sick time from year to year. Here's a question I actually want to ask because Jen brought this up and we were looking on it. Because this is going to go into Scott with the new bill. But one of our questions was, it said a $1,000 fine if you don't, can you remember, Jen, how was that worded?
If you don't comply with their rules as far as offering the paid sick time.
Okay, so is that
It's per day up to a certain amount, I believe. I think it's up to a certain amount cap, but yes, I mean, it's.
$1,000 a day?
And they can bring a civil action against you as well in this current statute. They can sue you civilly on top of that. So it's a preemptive that you're guilty. So you have to follow, and you also can't have any retribution. They don't show up for 3 days. You know what's going on. You discipline them for something else. You're presumed guilty doing it because they didn't show up. So we're trying to change that.
Trying to change that. That's good, because Jen's like, I'm just gonna go ahead, which you'll talk about how you can pay in advance at the first of the year and then they can't accrue and it can't roll over to the next year, but who has the money to pay up front? I don't. Ted, you wanna say anything before I introduce Scott?
Yes, the final thing that I want to say is this is a sneaky trick to create a mentality that people, certainly the 18 to 30-year-olds, the way they achieve is by asking with their hat in their hand, the government, what should I get in our government? We stop trying to convince them that the staff has the ability themselves to determine their own wage. Do not look at the government for what you're going to make every hour. Be far more ambitious to say, I am not going to look to the government to determine my minimum wage. I'm going to look at what is within myself to, with hard work, dedication, and prayer, to go and win. And I feel like this is another sneaky trick to people thinking, I mean, waitresses, I'm sorry, your servers and bartenders, if they're making $15 an hour, I've said this on my video, no one walks into our kitchen and says, here, dishwasher, I know you're an hourly wage, here's a tip. Tips are gone. And waitresses and bartenders are gonna say to Lansing, can you get me more per hour versus working harder, giving better service, being more friendly? They're gonna look at Lansing. Get me more instead of looking within themselves. It's devious, man. It is a devious trick that they're playing on us. So, who would we like to?
And let's ask, okay, does everyone understand what we're facing come February 21st before we move on to the new stuff? Is there any questions?
Yes. So what I'm hearing is the no call, no show for 3 consecutive days. They come back to work. You can't fire them for that. So then you turn around and steal from you for a week and you fire them, then they're going to say it's just cause because you didn't show up for 3 days.
You'll have a right to defend yourself, but the way the ballot proposal was written to go into effect is that you would be presumed that's why you're doing it. So you'd have to defend yourself and prove it. which, you know, you will, that means the Department of Labor, you have to deal with that, and
But
who
you
has
already
time?
presumed- You already presumed guilty because you're fired.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Just check.
Yep.
Okay, another question in the back.
Is it, so every 30 hours they work, they automatically get one, is that in a 7 or 8 day period, or is that just?
It's every 30 hours total, so every 30 hours you get another hour of sick
Or
time.
it's not a certain week, it's just them?
Correct.
And it rolls over.
Yeah. So.
Right,
yeah.
per year.
So it does carry over, you don't have to, it's not a liability in your books where you have to pay them out, right? Normally, when you provide that as a benefit, obviously, a lot of times you provide a sick time benefit, you then have to pay that out when they leave. So example, the Licensed Beverage Association, all of our employees have sick time, you know, vacation time and all that, and if they don't use it, sick time, we don't, but our paid leave and stuff, we do give them money if they leave, right? This you do not, that's the one good news about the ballot proposal, is you do not have to pay it out if they leave. However, they carry over that 72 hours every year, up to 70, they can't go higher. But that means they're gonna have it. So, again, it's a tracking nightmare is one of the issues. And they can use it in 1 hour increments. Actually, the way it's written, they can use it like 1 minute increments.
To me, this sounds like a union contract.
I'll get to that in a second.
Okay. And to me, aren't those negotiated? Can we do
That-
a sanctuary city?
That's
Let's
a
make
great,
ourselves
that's a great point,
sanctuary
and so that was some of my comments in the past, and I'll get to it in a minute, but that this is what labor's job is to negotiate these contracts. So if I was, let's say with Ford, and I went in and said, I want our people to make $300 an hour, Ford would go, okay, we're closing our plants, thank you, that's the end of the negotiations. Well, no, then you negotiate. This is not a negotiation, we don't have a choice, and I'll explain the ballot proposal in a second on how that happened and all that good stuff.
Okay, I saw a question right here.
I thought on the previous slide, I saw that they could carry it over from year to year with no cap on the time accrued, not the 72.
I'm working on the other bills, so it's hard for me to keep
Yeah.
track. I'll have to look, let me look to confirm on it, because I don't want to misspeak on that. I can look here when I get a break. I thought it was capped at 72 as
I
well.
thought it was too until I just saw it.
Yeah, I'm pretty
That
sure
was
it's
a
capped.
copy and paste of the,
So it's capped. I'm pretty, and
Okay.
Representative, yeah, me too.
okay. Now I will introduce Scott. All right, but I am going to give a little plug because I'm good at talking good about other people. During COVID, and you know, none of us knew what was going on, and oh my gosh, what are the rules? What am I supposed to do today? What was I supposed to do yesterday? How do I do all this? The Michigan Licensed Beverage Association was a forerunner in our state, keeping us restaurant owners informed on what we need to do, and that is why we became members of the Michigan Licensed Beverage Association. And I just want to say, I do, if you want to learn more, I do. I was elected to the board, I sit on the board, but Scott is a champion for us in Lansing, and he needs the credit that credit is due. He also does sit on the Michigan Chamber of Commerce board. He was just newly elected to that position this past year. He's very informed, he's there every day, and he has great relationships with both sides of the aisle, because like we said, this is a bipartisan issue. And he just looks out for our best interests, and he is fighting really hard for us, and he's very knowledgeable, and I respect this man tremendously. So with that said, Scott Ellis, the mic is yours.
Thank you. Well, first I got to say, yes, absolutely.
Just to verify, if you already have a PTO in place,
Yep.
you have to go over and above what PTO you have in place? Or in other words, you have to honor this on top of your
Correct.
PTO?
Well, no, you would honor this, you have to adjust your PTO. And that's, yeah, this is the minimum, and that's a big issue with this, because a lot of companies go, well, it's all gonna do that, right? And that's gonna be a problem. So you have to honor this as a minimum. But that's part of our argument, is all the plans that are already out there, because business owners have better plans than this. So, and I'll cover that a little bit more, but that's a great question. So real quick, yes, I am Scott Ellis, and I do appreciate Diane's thing. I do also own a distillery in Lansing, Michigan, so I have employees and I have paid leave, and as the director of the association, obviously we have employees as well. The other thing about COVID, I have to give my team 90% or 100% of the credit. We worked our butts off from home, and we went to the office a lot. And we were essential. And that was a great time for us as far as learning and really seeing what you guys needed and how important we really were. And so we've been around since 1939. We represent you not just on liquor license stuff, not just on alcohol. It's obviously you have to have a liquor license to be a full member, but the idea is we're here to represent small business. We have very few franchisees, very few chains in our membership. So that being said, I want to give a quick of how this happened in since 2018, kind of a quick thing on ballot proposals. Ballot proposals are signatures, and you've all been bombarded by them outside of Costco or outside of these different things, and you have, 10 seconds to read and think you understand what you're signing. So if someone said, don't you think everybody should at least make $15 an hour? Well, that sounds great on paper. But no one looks at the back end of who's going to pay that, how it's going to happen, and all that. And same with paid leave. Shouldn't everybody have paid leave? Well, sure. A lot of owners already do. The majority of owners do that. But it's one blanket doesn't fit all. I think of small towns here. I think of the small town in the Upper Peninsula. How are they going to afford this? How are they going to manage this? So this ballot proposal went around, and One Fair Wage is actually originally out of New York. They were founded with great intentions right after 9/11 to help all the servers that were out of work because of the Terrorism Act. Okay? Great intentions. Then they evolved into more of a activist to fight for this, and now their president's out of California, and I don't even know if is in the industry, is a professor there. The group, there was a restaurant that started in New York and said, we are not going to have tips, so we're going to pay everybody at least $15 an hour. It failed. They slowly or quickly realized you can't operate that way. We all know on a good day, 5% profit margin is amazing, right? Or a good month, or a good year. 3 to 5%, that's what we operate on at the best. I also know that, and this was very eye-opening for several legislators that I spoke with, that I don't have $100,000 sitting in my bank just to cover things, right? We're a cash flow business. Does everybody understand cash flow? Any small business owner? I had a member point out to me saying, hey, I don't own a business, I own a job. And that's exactly what it is. And I've always hung on to that one because it's so true now that I'm truly experiencing as a distillery owner. So these are things that there's a lot of misconceptions. They got the signatures. And at that time, the MLBA and all the other groups that are working with us on this went to the legislature and said, hey, we got to fix this. And so they did. They accepted the ballot proposal as written, as the signatures were there. That was one of the ways they had to do it, and they passed it, signed it into law, and then amended it in that same session. And that is what Diane was talking about. The Supreme Court ruled that that was illegal. We still feel that it is constitutional. However, we also believe in the law, and once the courts rule, that's what we got to operate with, right? That's just the way it works. And so we have been, since prior to that, but in not knowing what the answer was going to be, and we thought we'd be successful in the challenge, we've been preparing, and we've been working with these gentlemen here, and all the legislators in Lansing, and overwhelmingly, the vast majority, and I would say very big majority in the legislature agree that what's going to happen February 21st is going to have major impacts. This is where we run into part of the union problem, or part of the problem that we're battling. So now you have all small business owners and servers. We've had thousands of servers, 2 rallies for Save My Tips at the Capitol, had 400 to 500 each time, banging on the thing, letting everybody know they were there. And that's servers. That's not a business owner. Like Ted said earlier, oh, everybody thinks you're rich because you own a business. And so the servers are ones that showed up and said, we can't do this. This is not good for us. We like the flexibility in our schedule. I can work, someone told me, or was telling Diane earlier, I work the weekends, I make $80 an hour, and I'm home with my kids the rest of the week, right? I mean, they don't understand this. So on paper, this sounds like, oh, it's the greatest thing in the world, but the impact is not what people understand. I have family members that I had explained, because the biggest thing that people don't understand, they call it a tip credit. It's really what? A tip minimum wage, right? It's really what we pay. We can use 38% of the tip to cover that salary. But servers always make minimum wage. By law, you have to. Of course, if there's an owner that doesn't do that, they are breaking the law and they can get penalized, which absolutely we support, 100%. Good owners, majority owners, don't do that because they would have no employees, right? So we get that. So do you have my slides by chance? Yeah, go ahead and. So what we've been working on, and the House Republicans introduced it, well, let me go back to lame duck. What everybody's familiar with lame duck is kind of the last bit of the legislature, when outgoing legislators aren't going to be there anymore, a new legislative year starts, all the bills die, and we had been working hard with all the other Michigan chambers, all the local chambers, to have bills introduced to amend this. And it died. As you guys know, the House imploded at the end of the session, and Republicans walked out, and one Democrat who was on our side said she wasn't going to show up anymore, and needless to say, nothing got done. So we were left hanging, and now we're scrambling to get this done before February 21st, because the impacts are immediate, right? And if, my office manager owns a cleaning business as well, and she sat down right before I came here. So what do I have to do on the 21st? I'm like, start reading. And I said, I'll fill you in tomorrow. She's panicking, right? She has 5 employees, she's got to manage this, she's out cleaning buildings at night after work, and I mean, she's working her butt off. Again, owns a job, not a business. So what we introduced and had done, Representative Roth out of the 104th District introduced, this is regarding the minimum wage and tip tip pay. And so we, as you can see, how we adjusted the scale actually to move them up to $15 an hour earlier, so by 2030, or no, this was 2030, two years later. The point is, we are not opposing, even though it goes against what a lot of Republicans, they don't want to raise that minimum wage, but they get that this is important. And the Democrats that have supported us get it as well. So we are not opposing raising the actual minimum wage. What we're looking at is keeping that 38%. Does everybody understand? I mean, most of your owners, but everybody understands the 38%, right? And the easiest way to say that is you're allowed to use 38% of that rate from the tip. And so the pushback we get is, well, why should a patron be paying their salary? Well, that's how we stay in business. I mean, it's that simple. It's not anything to hide. It's nothing to be ashamed of. And I stay off social media, but unfortunately I do have to do it. And I see these people say, well, if you don't have enough money to pay your people, you shouldn't be in business. I said, okay, let's look at the 10 businesses, the little coffee shops, the sandwich shops, everything in restaurants and bars, downtown Lansing. Well, what's left of them? Let's look there. How many of them will close or, like Diane said, lay off? And now those people don't have jobs. So what a great theory. Well, if you can't afford to just close and don't be in business and go get another job, well, okay, what about the 15 people I just laid off? And where are they going to go? So again, this is it's not common sense. It's an easy emotional argument to say everybody should make this, but they already are making it. And we know by all the surveys we've done and all your surveys that you guys all do, you know they're making way more than $15 an hour. And the other is, well, just raise the prices. I had a staffer say, well, can't you just raise it like a 20%? Can't you just raise it on the tab 20%? I said, okay, but then my food cost goes up 10. So now I'm back down 10 again. How does that work? Well, the food cost, it changes daily. Tomatoes one day or this, eggs, let's get into eggs. No, let's not. Eggs, let's get into, right? So they don't understand that our industry isn't ever, and you guys as owners in any small business, the prices of a heating equipment, the price of a thermostat goes up. Well, you don't just roll that right to your customer instantly, you eat it for a while until you can figure out where you're gonna be, right? You don't go change your change order on the construction project you're doing instantly. You gotta deal with it. So we've had to really do a lot of education. And so what we're, in Senate Bill 4001, or House Bill 4001, which did have Democratic support. Representative Snyder was one of our champions for sure, has been on our side the entire time. He gets caught in the middle, but he's not afraid, but he also understands. We've had hard discussions about it. He's not afraid to point things out to me and call, and say, hey, what about this? So a lot of people think it's hyperbole that we're saying this because, other states haven't quite impacted this yet, had this impact that have switched to this. Well, I was out in California because of the Rose Bowl, one reason I went there, and went into a fast food restaurant with my 2 boys, ordered 3 burgers, 3 fries, and 3 Cokes, entered it on a kiosk. Someone yelled my name and handed me a bag for $55. So don't tell me that that's not gonna raise the cost, but also less employees, like Diane said. Normally that'd be someone I give the order to. And that's just an example of walking into a fast food restaurant. We're already seeing it's hard enough to get servers because after COVID, a lot of them went to other industries when we were closed and went, wait a minute, I don't have to work till 2 in the morning? I don't have to put up with rude people? Wait a minute, I can go to Amazon or somewhere else and make this, right? But they don't have the flexibility. They don't have the other things that they have, and a lot of them are coming back, but it's very tough. The other thing I like to point out too is a new restaurant owner. Anybody, how many people have been open, maybe bought or started the business in the last 5 years? How many times are you writing well, you don't have to raise your hand on this, but I'll raise mine. How many times do you have to write a personal check to cover payroll? Yep. And I told that to the legislature, they went, what? I said, well, I gotta make payroll. And this is part of owning a business. You have loans, you have rent, you have all these things at that high end, that first 10 years that crush you. And you can't get ahead. And that's why we see so many of them close in such, what do they say, 5 years? You make it 5 years, you're lucky. I made it into 7 and I'm selling now. And it's the happiest day when you sign it, the happiest day when you sell. It's kind of like going on a boat, they say, right? So this is what we're talking about in Lansing. It is not falling on deaf ears. What we're facing is the battle of the unions. Okay, and I'm not anti-union. I was a police officer for 20 years in the union. There's times I wanted to quit because I didn't like what they were fighting, maybe protecting people they shouldn't, but whatever. At the end of the day, they're very valuable. When that legislator asked, Representative Wenzel asked, do you represent any servers? You should have heard the gasps in the room when the representatives from AFL-CIO said, we don't have any servers. There was a letter that was signed by a bunch of unions, MEA is one of them, AFL-CIO, and a few others, but there's only one union that represents servers in the state of Michigan, and it's mostly hotel workers, did not sign the letter saying to not change the laws like we want changed. That, to me, is just a huge red flag of who is this really for? Why are you fighting for this? So it's a principle thing for them. Being in an association, we fight on principle as well, right? I fight on principle sometimes for your industry. Many years before my time, they fought the smoking ban. That was a lot on principle, right? Owner said, it's my choice, my business, let me choose. We ended up losing that. My point is, so I understand sometimes fighting on principle, but at the same time, you can't destroy the second largest economy in the state of Michigan, right? I mean, one of the largest economies in the state of Michigan. And that's what this will do with the paid leave and minimum wage. Getting on a soapbox, sorry. Because I do want to turn it over to the legislators. I'm not going to give the history of what's going on. I'm going to let them do that. You can go to my next one here. This is the paid leave. Just so you know, the MLBA has been fighting this as much as we've had the tipped wage. But it's also, we're working with the Michigan Chamber and all the Small Business Association and all the rest. And they have kind of taken that lead, and we're taking the lead on this with the Restaurant Lodging Association. And the reason is divide and conquer, right? We need to have all these meetings with all these legislators and just keep explaining and keep educating. And so what has been proposed is House Bill 4002, and you can see the big one there is the exemption. Right now there's zero exemption, like Diane said. So you have one employee, seasonal, whatever, you have to do this. We're using a 50-person employee threshold, which will be a majority of your small businesses, right? And the opponents are now saying that's 85% of the businesses out there, and well, that's because small business is the backbone of our society. It's kind of obvious of why the majority of businesses are small, right? Because it's not that easy to get big, and you're grinding it out every single day. So we're going to that. In this bill, we want a 50-person exemption. Part-time employees would be 25 hours or less. So even if you're above that 50 and you have to provide the paid leave, if it would not be for part-time employees, and that's where the 25 hours per week will come in. And independent contractors, under the current thing, your 1099 people, they call them employees, but they're really not employees, would also have to have paid leave. So I don't know if anybody's a 1099 here at a side business, consulting or anything. I know I do. They actually have to give me paid time off, even though they don't dictate my schedule. They don't do anything. It doesn't even make sense. But again, this is a ballot proposal. Here, sign this outside Costco. This is going to save everybody. That's not how it works. Allows for two options. Allows employee to accrue 1 hour paid for every 30 hours. So we're not arguing accruing paid leave. That's what they like to throw out there. Oh, you want your server to come in and be sick and be forced to come in. No, we don't. There's not one person in this room that I know of, and you can raise your hand if you want, that wants your employee to come in sick, because that just creates more of a problem, especially in the hospitality industry. And so we're not fighting giving them paid leave. Okay, we're about business choice, obviously. An employer can cap at 72 hours per year and limit the carryover to 72 hours. An employer may pay out unused time, but does not have to. That was a liability that I talked about earlier. That's always a liability on your books, right? That if you do your books and you're giving people paid time off, you have to have that, basically an escrow, or have that amount there to pay someone if they quit tomorrow, because it's their time. So we want to make sure you can have that option. Is that a great benefit to offer in certain industries? Absolutely. Seasonal employee, that's kind of hard to give them time and then they leave. Think about Mackinac Island. Good portion of them, their servers are seasonal. Can you imagine in September, and I'm leaving, going back to a lot of visas and a lot of things that work. You know what? I'm going to take the month of September off. And now Mackinac Island doesn't have any servers. Talk about crushing a major time on Mackinac Island. If you haven't been up there in September, it's the best time. It's not as busy. And it would crush it. And I mean, that's just one example. In fact, my president owns a place called Riverwalk up near Torch Lake, and all his are seasonal. And he literally would have, at the end of August, burn my sick time, and you got to pay me, and backfill that spot, because you can't serve without it.
Got a question
Yeah,
on that, actually.
yeah.
And and now, back to the Mackinac, I like using that example as well, too. And aren't and I can't remember what their title is, the employees that come from different countries.
Visas or they're different.
Right, so they are exempt from this, correct?
Under ours. Correct.
Yes,
Yep.
they are exempt from this. And what I see, what kind of scares me about that, Of course, now Mackinac Island is totally gonna bring all of those employees to work, and all these college kids who are here, residents of our own great state, Michigan, pure Michigan, our great campaign we have, they're not going to get jobs up in Mackinac Island. They want to go into the hospitality industry. What a great place to go. I have some personal friends who did that throughout college, and they go up there still now all the time. But now those businesses will not hire Michiganders to go up there and work because let's hire these people from other countries.
And Diane's right, and I'll go back to the president. He had to go to visa workers because he couldn't get enough locally in that area to work. In this industry, a lot of them have left, like I said, and went into other different types of work. So a very big issue that we're going to continue to, says allow employers to front load the 72 hours. That is an accounting thing, right? How many, I mean, now you have to, someone point up, I have to track every single hour. Yep, and you better have those records. You have to have those records if you're investigated by Department of Labor. So you have to track every single hour. They show up for 2 minutes late, and you're going to charge them that sick time or that paid time off, you have to track it.
How would you escrow that from year to year, and then where is that on IRS implications? I mean, if you're escrowing leave for this 2024, do you claim it in 2024, or do you roll it?
Well, it's just time on your books. It's not necessarily, I mean, when I say you have to have the cash, that's because you as an owner have to be able to pay it, right? At the end of the day, you don't have to keep that cash on the books, but you have to be able to pay it out if they use it. So as far as that, I mean, that's the CPA tax-wise on how you would bank that, I don't know. I mean, the way the state wants it, though, it's more of a State Department of Labor thing. You have to have records showing Scott Ellis has earned the 72 hours. He showed up 2 minutes late. Now he's got, 70 hours. Or 70 minutes, I guess, whatever the amount. I'm not good at math. I was a cop. There's a reason I became a cop. And then this also, in our bill, also defaults it to 1 hour increments. So if they don't show up, they burn an hour. Allows employees to establish reasonable notice for leave and disciplinary action for misuse. How many people already have policies for paid or for sick time or policies for no-shows? If you don't, we have a sample, a whole book that you get when you join the MLBA with all these policies that you can put your own name in. I highly, highly, highly recommend them because these are the things we're facing. Okay, so if you don't have one, you got to get a policy book together. And then strikes the rebuttal presumption that I talked about earlier, that you're presumed guilty. I mean, again, that's not how America works. We're not presumed guilty, right, until innocent. I mean, it shouldn't be at least. And so it strikes that out of there. Civil, I think people get confused, is you can bring a civil suit on anything. Okay, you can sue anytime you want if you feel you're wrong and that there was some sort of civil violation. There's no reason to make this where you're presumed guilty because you disciplined, like the gentleman said, because they broke something and didn't tell you about it, lied to you, whatever the reason is. So what I want to do though, and we brought the important people here in the room today for a reason. I can answer all what I think, what's going on and where we're at, but I want them to be able to answer. But where we left off before I hand it to them, both these bills have passed the House as of last week. It's a big deal, big step in the right direction. At the same time, early in the year, the Senate Democrats introduced 2 bills to change what's going to happen February 21st. So that's a huge sign of them showing that, yes, we have to do something. However, it did not even come close to far enough. It's still got a lot of the problems, presumptive accusation is better. Presumptive guilty in there, so we have a lot of work to do, but the positive, because I like to be an optimist too, is that we have both parties, both chambers, including the governor, who has said in the past that, hey, if it gets, she's not saying anything now, but she is answering, or she is saying if it gets here, we'll go from there. We have had positive meetings on all 3 chambers. So now it got out of the House, now the clock's ticking really fast. We want to get something done before February 21st, before you guys have to have all this in place. And what do you do then, right? Start over again, you pay a CPA. I know a lot of my members are calling and said, I just had to hire a CPA to do this for me. I had no idea how to set this up, right? We're a small business. How many people use QuickBooks and do it on your own, right? A lot of us. You need to get QuickBooks. Yeah, you can get break down and get QuickBooks. It makes life a lot easier.
It does, and I found a way to track the sick time.
Good to know. So with that, I want to bring up the reps, and I hate to do this to you. Let's grab a couple chairs, because I think it's easier for them to sit up here and stand up here, and we can actually shut this off or darken it. But yeah, question when the reps are coming up.
Part-time employees at 25 hours, what if they don't consistently work 25 hours? Is it an average?
It is, and the Department of Labor does it. So one thing, if you want to look at the easiest thing to look at right now, planning for the worst, go to the Department of Labor's website. They do have a bunch of FAQs up there. They ironically changed one over the weekend. Hey, Representative. But it's the greatest asset right now for you to look at for the worst case scenario of February 21st. Oh, the new proposal, it would be, yes, it would be average, not every week. Yep. Yep.
There is no provision in the way it's written now to where you can prove they make more than minimum wage with tips.
So what happens is, and great question, so on the tip credit, or tips minimum wage, or also called tip credit, right now you can use 30% and over every year it goes to 48, it climbs less, right? So now eventually it's gone. So what their goal is, $15 an hour plus tips. Okay, and someone said, well, they'll make more money. I said, yeah, the one that's still working out of the 5 to 10 that got laid off, maybe, right? And we also know tipping is an American thing. They like to throw out other countries. Tipping is an American culture we've had forever. And it's been here, and it's a very hard thing to change. But it's not hard when you start seeing those ticket prices as a customer going, I mean, we've already seen, how many people used to stay open till 2 a.m. that don't anymore? A majority of my members don't stay open till 2 a.m. anymore. They're done by 10 and 11 o'clock because people just aren't going out like they used to. Social media, there's a lot of reasons, right? COVID, all kinds of different things. But our industry has changed. And so now to increase that and do that, it's going to be even worse, right? So, and I'm going to be around after for questions. I want to let these gentlemen talk because really they are the ones that are making the change for us. I mean, every single one of them up here is on our side. And that's huge to me. Doesn't matter what party you're with, they're on our side. So with that, we'll do questions and/or then and if you guys answer, just introduce yourself again real quick so they know in some that, had snow or something keeping them late. So let's go with questions. And again, guys, this is to your legislators. You are their constituents. So we're not here to beat anybody up because these guys are on your side, but really ask why, how, and how we got here in their opinion and what they feel. If not, I'll have to ask the questions. All right, well, then I guess I'll ask the first question for you. Yeah, you guys just want to chat? That's even better. There you go. I like it.
I can chat first. So Joseph Fox, 101st District. And I just want to say it's really a pleasure to hear what Ted Fricano had to share. I stand with you. And number one, with government is not God. And that's something that is sad in our culture. And I can't believe, I've just been in 2 years, and I can't believe how many people line up and hold out their hands and ask for money, okay? And it's just that concept that government is God that lives out there in our culture today. And we have to remember that, and I agree 100% with his comments about hard work, dedication, and prayer. Yeah. We need all those things coming together. And another thing I will say is we have a big problem in our country, and we saw it in Michigan with this whole decision about the 2018 Adopt and Amend, in that the Supreme Court of Michigan legislated from the bench. They even laid out a plan of how the money should be apportioned out and how this should happen. They were legislating from the bench, and if you study your Constitution, the legislature is first, the executive is second, the bench is third. Go back and study the Constitution of the United States of America. And thirdly, what has gone on way too often in our country, and you heard it here with the Fines idea, is the weaponizing of our government against us. And we don't need it. We don't need it. It's we the people, that's how the Constitution starts, and it's we the people that we need to keep on the focus. And of course, we the people all live under one God. In God we trust. So I voted for this, and as did all these fellows up here, and I'll let them share, but that's my heart on all of this.
Well, thank you to everybody for coming to the beautiful 87th House District, first of all, and welcome. I am Rep. Snyder here from Muskegon, and I am the lone Democrat up here, one of the few Democrats that voted yes. And I do come from a labor background. I want to be very clear about that too, as we talk about some of the issues that were presented in the presentation. And I made it very clear from the get-go to my friends in labor where my stance was and where I was going to vote. I offered some amendments to try and make it a little better, and I think that, you know, as we move forward in the Senate, we have to come to the realization that the bills that pass the House are not going to be the final bills that pass. And there needs to be a real realization of that. So I offered an amendment in committee which would have restored the wage scale to the Supreme Court's wage scale. So on February 21st, minimum wage would be phased in to $15 an hour over 4 years, starting at $12.48 an hour. The House version of the bill, you know, starts that at $12 an hour, and I think it's over 5 years. The Senate version of the bill is over 3 years to $15 an hour. I think the end of this, somewhere in between, is what's going to be the reality. But the argument from organized labor is going to be that you're cutting minimum wage, and that's why they took such a stance that affects all workers. So I think that's realistic. The Senate version of the bill also phases the tip credit up to 60% over 10 years from the current 38%. I think there needs to be a, you know, understanding that more than likely the tip credit will be raised from that 38%, whether we like it or not. That's just the realistic possibility of where this is heading. And the one that was harder for me personally was the sick time. I think defining a small business at 25 employees or less, which is what is in the Senate version, is more realistic with the exemptions that were laid out in the House version for seasonal employees and for part-time employees at, I think it's 25 hours or less in the bill. You know, that's something that I'm probably more supportive of, but I couldn't in good faith vote no on these bills, knowing that there is a realistic, you know, path forward that something does not happen by February 21st. That's out of our hands now. I do think that something will happen at some time, whether it's before or after February 21st, but I do believe there's a realistic path with it by February 21st. A deal is not reached between both chambers and the governor. We also have to acknowledge some other outside factors of what might be holding up some negotiations. Is there was 9 bills that were passed during the lame duck, one of them is mine, that are currently sitting in the House Clerk's office that have not been presented to the governor. My bill puts, for instance, corrections officers into the state police pension program. I think Senate Dems are going to take a pretty hard stance on the presentation of those bills before moving forward. And I just think that all of those are real issues that we have to accept and understand. So thank you for coming, Ms. Keegan.
Actually, Representative Workman, before you start, Ted and I have a question. What, you weren't going to start?
No,
Oh.
I'm ready, but go ahead.
Because it kind of leads into one of our questions that we've just been asked, especially these last couple of days, and please help educate us on. Representative Snyder was just talking about the bills, and can anything be done on a national level right now, especially as we hear our newly elected President Trump talking about the no tax on tips? So people have been coming to us and saying, okay, how can this, what's happening on a national level, can they intervene and make some changes at a state level?
The Supremacy Clause rules. So the Supremacy Clause in our Constitution says that a federal law will supersede state law. However, there's no chance that happens by February 21st.
Right.
Greg is ready to go.
Thank you, Representative. Thank you, Representative Snyder, for your comments. I'm State Representative Greg Workham. I used to represent half of Muskegon County, now I represent Norton Shores area down to basically the J.H. Campbell plant in Grand Haven, Spring Lake. Also happen to be a restaurant owner as well. Here's my couple thoughts on this, and it's probably more political than factual, which you guys may be seeking here. This is a crisis that was created. We all knew it was there. Everyone in Lansing knows that this is a problem. This is a crisis. We knew this in July, that this was coming down. And the fact that we didn't do anything. Now, There was a Democrat trifecta in place, and that's why House Republicans left the floor. We did a protest. Because this is an absolute crisis that we can see coming and we still don't do anything about it.
Amen.
And that's the frustrating part about Lansing. And then to hear the comments of, well, these 9 bills should be a part of it. That's the other problem with Lansing. This is a crisis that we should be negotiating about this crisis rather than adding all these other elements into place about this. This is people's real lives, real businesses, and to start mixing up in different negotiations about completely separate topics into this when we're facing this deadline is unacceptable. We need to be focusing on this, getting it done, so that these families, these businesses can stay employed and stay running. So it's always been a frustration of mine, knowing that this crisis was coming, that was going to get integrated into some other unrelated thing, whether it be roads, whether it be, you pick the topic. The governor's been trying to do her Family Medical Leave Act stuff. The governor's had all these economic programs with the REN zone, the economic zones, these kind of things that you just felt like they were going to integrate into this. When we know that this was happening, we know people's lives were at stake, and we still couldn't get it done. And so I'm proud that House Republicans put it as the first 2 bills, knowing that how critical this is to the state of Michigan. This will upend our economy if we don't get it done, and we shouldn't be starting integrating other negotiations into this because it's such a big issue for our state.
So, with that,
Welcome to Lansing.
Greg and I actually get along most of the time. Late night Lansing. As I said, that's why I voted for it, to be understanding that there's a realization that this might not happen by February 21st. And I'm just here to give you real talk why I think these things might be a part of that discussion. I'm not going to come and shield from the truth of the reality of what might or might not be happening between the Senate Majority Leader, the Speaker, and the Governor. I think all those things are part of the discussion. And I'm not going to come here and feed you a line of bullshit that I don't believe in. Never have done that before, and I'm not going to start. I'm sorry. I'm not going to start. And I think that that's part of the ongoing negotiations, and I want it to be pretty transparent with everybody.
If anybody would like a comparison of the House and Senate bills and what they do, I've emailed that.
I have packets up here.
Yes, we do have packets.
I had put in the packets.
Yes.
I emailed it to Scott and they have that. Luke, would you like to say anything?
I appreciate your attendance here. It's incredibly important for we the people to have these venues where your voices are heard. The disconnect, I think, when people don't feel like there is a we the people anymore, that's when we're in trouble. I can't imagine being in your seats, facing this wall coming towards you. I'm a dairy farmer by trade. I was in a truck this morning, hauling some lumber. So, you're responsible. Your heart is built into what you have. And you wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't something you loved. There's other things you could probably go do and make more money at, but you really, really enjoy what you're doing. And you're responsible for a lot of lives. It is incredibly disheartening for me to see us at this time having sort of just moved the needle. So we'll do what we can, but it shouldn't be on you like it is today, but this is the situation we're in. I served 89th District. My name is Luke Merriman, and I'm from Coopersville. So.
Our senators would.
You own your own farm? Got a question for this gentleman here. This one here. You said you were in the labor force?
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever own your own business?
I did not.
Oh, I didn't know.
Our senators are not here today, but I always like to leave a meeting with what to do next. I don't think we need to talk about the bills anymore. You can compare the House and the Senate bill. What we need to do is spur the Senate on to action. So call your senators. It makes a difference. And I'm not saying send a form email, call them, or send a personalized email. Don't curse. But it does help. Contact your senator and say, this is a priority. We need to make this happen. And I don't think you realize, we represent 90,000, they represent 230,000-ish. It makes a difference. When you get a personalized email from someone, so that is your to-do list. When you leave here, I'm sure Scott can connect you with your senators. Questions, please. Yes, ma'am.
I'm wondering where it became logical that
Stop. There's no logic.
that 14 to 17-year-olds basically gets vacation pay, sick pay, for working.
You're going to be very frustrated if you try and apply logic to politics.
It
All right,
goes back to
so-
the ballot proposal.
Yeah.
Right, it's nobody on here did.
Yeah, 80% of our workforce is under the age of 18. And we're gonna give vacation pay to them?
Without probably taking your own paycheck.
They own an ice cream shop. They're good.
So they can skip school and.
Yeah.
So, right, unless anybody wants to, I don't think we're going to even guess why that happened. I don't have an answer. That is a great question. It's illogical. We all agree.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
We went into business to live the American dream clearly, to be able to employ people and see people get ahead and learn. And the hardest thing is when the government comes in and tells you how to run your business. Imposing things like this is definitely hard on a small business. We have health insurance that goes up every year 20%. We have liability and automobile insurance that goes up 40%. When is this gonna stop? We're not made of money. All this is gonna be passed on to anybody who's gonna go to do business at my business, heating and cooling, to restaurants, anywhere. All this is gonna be passed on and everybody's gonna pay more. This is the worst thing that can ever happen to the state of Michigan.
Who is John Galt?
Who?
That's the question.
Yeah.
If you read Ayn Rand, it's Atlas Shrugged. Who is John Galt? And it's one of those things to say, small business owner, small business owner, small business owner. We absolutely understand. And it's going to get to the point where you're not going to go out for, I'm sorry, that was my Ayn Rand economic reference. We understand what you're saying, but there's always just one more thing. And everybody up here thinks that we're doing the right thing, okay? And I'm not arguing with you. Small business owner for 30 plus years. This is a terrible package.
100% terrible.
We don't even need to debate that anymore. But there's people in Lansing who think they can run your life better than you can. And that's the answer, it's the benevolent government.
I'm not disagreeing on that, but the comment that Diane had made that now she's gonna have to cover her employees down to 24 hours a week.
Right?
How are people gonna live? So how is this better for people? If she's employing somebody for 40 hours, and now she has to cut down to 24, what do? This isn't bettering any employee or employer at all.
The true minimum wage is $0. It is.
We shouldn't be told what we should have to do our employees. That's,
What-
and I'm not trying to be.
I want to see your name on the ballot.
You may.
Yes. Oh, yeah,
Another component to this, which I don't think gets discussed or was kind of referenced to it, of the origins of this. This was a ballot proposal. And during my time active in politics and legislature, I'm finding more and more of my energy is related to fixing ballot proposals. That groups from, in this instance, California, come in with some money behind it, with a good sounding thing, we're gonna increase the minimum wage, oh, we're gonna do this here. Same as some of the election reform stuff, we're gonna make sure veterans can get ballots on time, oh, but we're gonna do this, you never hear that. It's never on the commercial. And then, through the legislative process, we're the ones that have to go and try and clean this up and make it tolerable or manageable based on the guardrails that we have now been given. I think it's about time, and hopefully this spurs it, that we start talking about how we reform doing ballot proposals in the state of Michigan. Because we're one of the few states that actually continue to do this. And with what the atmosphere is and what politics is, and money in politics now is just becoming more and more difficult to defend a lot of these things. And in the end, it's not well thought out, sound public policy that people expect, but gets dropped in our laps of saying, you did this, you now need to fix this. So I'll probably be advocating and talking more about that in the year to come, that it seems like every single term I've been in office, it's been about fixing a ballot proposal that has occurred. And it's the outside money from other states, it's other organizations that have a motive, both sides do it, but in the end, we're the ones picking up the pieces as legislators and as families, as employers of trying to fix this so that we can continue to live in the state of Michigan.
Did you say people out of California come here to tell us how to run our state? They can't even run their own state.
Yeah.
So I agree with a lot of Greg's sentiment there on some of the ballot proposal stuff. I would like to, just for a little background, and I think Scott gave a great history of One Fair Wage and how they actually originally started and now they are California based, but they've been on the ballot in other states, some successful, some not. I would emphasize on some not. The state of Massachusetts just had the same ballot proposal. It was voted down last year, and their Democratic governor and their Democratic legislative leaders in the state all came out opposed to it, and it was voted down overwhelmingly. So I just want to put that out there for context.
It's really important, and I know you want to, it's important that he says that too, because they're already talking about doing a referendum, which means if we do get changes, even if it's agreed upon on both chambers of the governor, that they're going to fund a referendum, which means that they go out and get signatures with a lower threshold that would then freeze the law that these gentlemen in the legislature or governor passes and says, here's the new minimum wage paid leave. It's the compromise that we strike. It would put that off and go right back to the February 21st thing because they have the money to do it. So obviously on our end, we will have to do our education, but they're already threatening that, and that is a threat that they're kind of laying out to the legislators. Don't you dare, we're going to go do this. And it's not right. It's not right. But Representative Muir wanted to say something.
Thank you. I guess I'd like to say thanks to my colleague across the aisle sitting up here with us. I don't know if you caught that, but he is a big labor guy and so often is supporting what they're asking, and they were supporting him voting no, so it was a hard thing for him to do that, as well as if you look at what the caucus did on the other side of the aisle, it was a lot of pressure to get a no vote. And so his yes vote, I think, gives us a little bit more leverage across over the Senate. I also want to throw out there on the ballot initiative, $10 million, I don't know if it's the same number you use, but right from the Restaurant Association, of the $10 million, how much came from Michigan? The number I have is $150. So it's broken, what's set up. But I believe it would take a ballot initiative for the people to vote away their authority. It's in the state constitution. But maybe Greg got to figure it out.
Question.
So that was my question. Can we do this? Can we do a ballot initiative? Do you need us to do that? How do we do, you guys want to help us get that started?
Greg has volunteered to do that
And on that note, it's a heavy lift, right? Millions of dollars, right? I know VA doesn't have millions, and it's to go out and pay someone to go gather all these. So you have to have 200, 300,000 somewhere in there, right? And more than that now. Valid, that's the point. Yeah. They got valid signatures, weren't signed twice, a lot to it. Obviously this is sometimes can take away the rights of us as citizens by this ballot proposal, right? And I agree with Reverend, I think it does need to be revamped. I obviously don't want to take that right away from us as citizens to be able to go and say, wow, these legislators and governors screwed everything up, we gotta change it by the vote of the people. We don't ever want to give that up. But can it be cleaned up? Absolutely. And I think that's more than getting rid of it. I think Representative Van Werkman's saying is we gotta look at this and maybe put some guidelines on it, maybe some more checks and balances. I don't want to speak for me, but I think you've mentioned it before. I agree with you personally, that it is something that needs to be looked at because we are constantly, and then again, we're already facing the threat. Well, go ahead, you guys went in the legislature, again, now we're just gonna go referendum. Let's not listen to the servers, business owners, let's go ahead and referendum. Let's not listen to what the people are saying.
Just some more big picture comments. The United States is a representative republic. And that's important to study into. You know, we choose our representatives. We are not run by the mob, okay? And when you come to ballot initiatives, like Rep. Van Werkman was talking about, you can lean toward that mob thing, especially when you throw in all the money coming from other places. And this is hard for me to talk about without crying, but Proposal 3 was another referendum, okay? And we watched for 2 years, and I watched Democrats across the aisle crying as I prayed that we would vote against Proposal 3. In case you don't remember, that's all about the abortion laws, okay? And that's a result of a referendum. And it's one of the saddest things that has hit our state. There are 60, in the life walk I took yesterday, the number quoted was 64 million who are not among us because of abortion. And about half of the people being aborted now are being aborted medically, okay? And I'm bringing in who Joseph Fox is with all this.
So, when the presidential debate was going on, I listened to our podcast about the funding that comes into our country from other countries. And that the state of Ohio passed something that they will no longer accept propaganda not funded from within the United States. Is there any way the state of Michigan can put something else like that out there so that we're not getting proposals in from other?
Is there a way? Absolutely. Do the parties have the appetite to say no to money? Right? There's someone, I mean, that's what you're asking. I think all of us here would say, let's get rid of dark money. Let's report we're not subject to FOIA. I don't even know if this is amazing. Michigan is one of the 2 states in the nation. So if you're on the library board, the sheriff's department, the fire department, the school board, the city commission, anywhere, you are subject to the Freedom of Information Act. The state legislature in Michigan is not. And that's embarrassing. And we still can't get it passed.
I have another question. Oh, sorry.
I may be correcting the good representative, but I believe under the Supreme Court case Citizens United, it pretty much opens up that money is free speech, and therefore money can flow however it wants into politics. I don't think you can put a geocache block on the state of Michigan.
You can't say no, but you can make it reportable.
Right.
Transparency.
You can have transparency,
Right.
but you can't stop
Can't stop
money
it.
coming in from foreign, then how you report it and when to report it, so you can see whether it's money from out of state.
I just had, oh, go ahead.
Just so I'm clear on this, the 40 hours on the bill that's passed, taking effect February 21st. It doesn't matter how many hours you work. Now, you're trying to pass a bill, 4001, 4002, to change that, to minimize that to under 25 hours, correct?
Correct.
As of February 21st.
Correct.
So it doesn't behoove us to cut any of our employees down to 25 hours because it
Correct.
doesn't matter.
Nope.
Okay, right?
Correct. Yep, yep, correct.
Would it be possible, I mean, could we refuse to serve people who don't vote in our direction?
Well, so I'm gonna jump out with your civil lawsuit there. With alcohol, you have a right to refuse service, but it can't be obviously for race, sexual, political affiliation, then you're gonna get faced with a civil lawsuit. So I highly recommend not to. Yes, you have a right to, refuse service, somebody intoxicated, they don't have an ID, that type of thing. When you start doing that, you're gonna hold yourself up to the civil law, so I would not recommend that. Let us fight, that's working for.
The answer is more discussion. The answer
Yeah.
is, the answer is going out for Will with a beer after the session. No, seriously, when the camera's not on, hey man, what are you thinking? What's going on here? And Will is able to do that. I can't speak highly enough of my colleague here, all of us, but I think we have too much partisanship now. I think we have too much divide, and the answer is to go to your restaurant and have a beer and say, what are you thinking?
What kind of drink?
And let me jump in. We every year we get members asking, how do I get involved? What do I do? Have town halls like this at your restaurant. I mean, Ted and Diane put this together a lot of work, but it's not even just a town hall either. Seriously, email our office, your constituent business owner, and even not just a restaurant. Even cooling. Go show me your facility. Show them the cost you have for that equipment that's sitting on that truck that you have to cover, and you just don't have the cash to buy that equipment right away. It's your cash flow. Those are the things that, and again, these guys, everybody up here gets it, but in your lucky limited area that, Will gets it, and everybody gets it, but this is what we tell our members. Grassroots, this is what I want to wrap up from my end. Grassroots is what got us to where we're at today with these bills being introduced. This was not us as MLBA alone and restaurant lodging and chambers. This was the grassroots of the thousands of servers, the business owners making emails. So when Representative Kuhn said email, I cannot stress that enough. That you need to Google it. My state senator, put your zip code in of where your business is, because that's who you're actually reaching out to, right? You may not live in the same one, so you want to make sure you reach out to them where your business and where it affects you. But also to your residents, so you have two, your constituent too. You need to fire that email off ASAP. Time is of the essence for us, right? And that is what has worked, is by you, because that's who they answer. They don't answer to me. They don't answer to the Michigan Licensed Beverage Association. People don't want to put that out there that, we have all this power. No, it's the constituents. In both parties, that's who they listen to more than anything. So I'm going to stress that when I hand this off, because I got to stop.
So they do read our email.
100%. And that's a great question. They truly do. And now some of them that say, the tinfoil, they may not really get into that one much, but the other ones they do. They do listen to them. They have staff that handle it. Don't be afraid to call there and leave a message or get that front desker and say, I really want to speak.
Go to office hours.
Got office hours, they all host them. So I cannot stress that enough, and now is the time of the essence.
Okay, so to wrap it up, Ted Carpano is actually tasting his pizza because he's closed on Mondays and he wanted to make sure everybody was eating, so he's making sure it's still nice and hot. But Ted and I, not only do we want to thank all of you, our legislators, we also want to say thank you to Tudor Dixon and Kyle Olson and Midwesterner for being here today and live streaming it. So we'll be able to find it on her podcast, I'm assuming, or midwestern.com, right? Twitter, YouTube. So that's huge, because this is our power right there, you guys. We have to get the word out. So them being here today is great. So find it, share it, and tell everybody you know. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I'll see you right tomorrow. Thanks, guys.